Campbell extraordinaire, the coalition builder to build all coalitions, for helping me to pull this together and bring together these powerful sisters. I'm also going to thank my other board member, Latasha Brown, who is the co-founder of Black Voters Matters Fund, and doing great work. I told you we got some powerful sisters on here. I didn't lie. I also want to thank our spiritual advisor to all things, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, who also is the co-chair of the National African American Clergy Network. I want to thank, let me just say something special about this Sister Joteka Eddie, who really, you all may not realize this, but she's the one who's bringing us all together. And we would not be here but for her. She has sounded the alarm and we have all answered. Of course, we could not have this conversation without Mignon Moore, who's the co-convener of Power Rising and political strategist extraordinaire to all political strategists. And then you can't do it if you don't make sure you have the people with us. And representing the people from all factions, starting with our working people. Cleola Brown, president of A. Philip Randolph Institute, and I tell her all the time, she's literally one of my favorite people. I know I'm in good space when she is present. And finally, not last, but definitely not least, this sister right here brings power. She is the chief strategist for Higher Ground Change Strategy, live from Jackson, Mississippi, Makani Timba. And now I'm going to turn it over to our prayer warrior, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner. And then following her, so we can keep this conversation moving, will be our host extraordinaire, Angela Rye. Now, you know, when you have Angela Rye asking the questions, we're gonna get the real tea. So she will be the next voice you hear after Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner. Please, Dr. Williams Skinner, set the tone for us.
Sisters, let's go to God in prayer. Oh God, our Lord, we thank you so much for bringing us to the space where we can even have a conversation about a Black woman vice president for these United States of America. Thank you, God, for the many who have the talent, the skills, the ability to deal with all of the serious problems of our nation at this time. They have come to this place for such a time as this. Lord, we thank you tonight for this intergenerational sisters to sister talk. We want to make it really plain that we are more than ready to step into the gaps in America's race relations, healthcare crises, unjust policing, all of the issues, the economy, all of those that are breaking our nation apart. Sisters are healers and problem solvers and are ready to step in. So thank you now to give us clear thinking that will help all of those who may be listening in to know that we've got to roll up sleeves and be ready for the fight. It will be a fight. We will not advance without a fight, but we are ready for the fight. Thank you. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner. Before we went live, people all need to know how much, just by her mere presence, Dr. Skinner has kept me in check. And I'm just so grateful for her leadership and for her light, her very bright light. I want to start with like the framing of this conversation. Many of you all, if you don't know Melanie Campbell, you need to get to know Melanie Campbell. Melanie sent us a text about 2 days ago about what we were going to do, right? And so when Melanie tells you what you're going to do, you just show up. And so Melanie, I'm so grateful to you, not only for always ensuring that Black women have a place to speak and to be heard, but to always be a convener of that. And I just thank you, because I want to ensure you know and the people know how critical you are to our movements. And on that, I want to start with some of the people who were role models to me before I was even in the, Capitol Hill and political space. And so whether it's Dr. Skinner or Mignon, or Mel, I really want to, or of course, Cleola Brown, I really want one of you all just to start with a frame. I want a historical frame about why it is so important that Black women are being heard on why we need a Black woman vice president, particularly given the ways in which Black women have stood up, have been the backbone of, have been the most faithful partner to the Democratic Party. And why is 2020 our time? And I'll defer to any of you who want to answer first, but I definitely want to hear from all of you on that. Okay, go. Yes. Go ahead, Mignon.
Yeah, we're gonna let our leader speak first.
Okay, I'm gonna call on you, Mel.
Yeah, Mel, you go.
Well, I actually feel like I needed to defer. So first I'm gonna say thank you. Again, it is so good to see everyone here. And thank you, Holly, for turning this on a dime, and thank all of my sisters here for just stepping in and just making sure that Black women, that we own our power in a whole nother way. It's not just about the VP. That's albeit is important. What it's about is we are affirming that we are more than good enough. We are the best opportunity for this party to win the White House. We're the best opportunity for this party to win the House and the Senate. And the last thing I just want to say is that at the end of the day, you say, well, why not a Black woman? I say this is a diverse country. We're living in this COVID-19 period. We're living in the midst of the longest, most powerful in modern times, peaceful protests, hell-raising protests when we need to be dealing with systemic racism that needs to change in this country. Why not? Diversity of a ticket should be the norm, not the exception. And so I think that's what I see as why this conversation is so important. And we're just going to just get right in. I just want to thank Angela again for being a host, and all of my sisters and my leaders on this one. All of you are my leaders. And I appreciate you all so very much for what everyone's doing. And so I'm going to turn it on back over to my sister Angela. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Mel. I want to go to you, Cleola Brown. I have to say your full government because I don't feel comfortable just saying Cleola. But I want to go to you. Mel just said something so powerful about diversity on the ticket should be the norm, not the exception. Can you just ground us in why that should be the case? Why we have earned that right at this point in our nation's history? Oh, I think we have you on mute, Ms. Brown. There you go.
Okay, is that better?
That's perfect.
Okay. If we just take just a moment to realize what our contributions have been, it's a no-brainer for us. Start thinking about Shirley Chisholm, for example, in the process, and all of the strong women who have shored up that democracy would not fall apart in this country, because Lord knows we have to fight for it every single day. Or if you look at even back in Slavery Sojourner Truth, if you take a look at our sisters from Texas who have done, Barbara Jordan, who had to do a teaching from the space where she was, so that folks who were already elected could understand what the law and what the practices of our democracy absolutely meant. It does not seem like there ought to be a question, but we know where we live. Systemic racism is alive and well, and it brought cousins to the table with it. And a part of that is to make sure that we don't beg for anything. We've already earned it. We've earned a place in the top leadership spaces in this country through the work, through the blood, sweat, and tears across every single venue that there is. And we're just calling the question, why not? And until there's a real answer, they got a fight coming on their hand. I'm not talking about picking no bullying fight. I'm talking about an entitlement space. And it's not that you're doing a favor, but because it's been earned. And if you don't think so, explain that to me.
Thank you so much. I want to go to you, Mignon. You have, like, you talk about earned your stripes. And not only put up the good fight, but put up the good fight for us when we didn't even know it. On campaigns since Reverend Jackson, since you said, "I shall not be moved." And so I want to come to you just to talk about, from your vantage point, as what people would deem, right, a Democratic Party insider. Where is the party getting it wrong right now, and why in this era, and especially given the time we're in right now, why is it so important that we correct course immediately and get this right?
Well, thank you, Angela. You know, it's always good to be on a panel with you, but you always get a little reticent because, you know, if you don't come correct, we could end up in a little trouble. But having said that, I know you're gonna give us a little slack because Dr. Barber is on here. But, you know, I just want to applaud your leadership. And I want to take this back to where we first started and believe that this was an important fight for us. And I'll put the Democratic Party aside for a second, because that did not enter into our consideration. When Mel convened us early on to say we needed to get into this fight, it was me, Cleola, and about 11 others, Latasha and all of us. One of the reasons why we knew we had to do it was because of your generation, Angela. You all are standing at the precipice of history yourself. You are on TV. Many of you are out here marching and fighting. And when we look back at our history, when we look back at Dr. Skinner and the leadership retreat, when we look back at what Dr. Betty Shabazz did for us, when we look back at what Rosa Parks did, not when she sat on the bus, but when she used to come up here and mentor us. When we look back at what Reverend Willie Taplin Barrow did and Coretta Scott King, we have an obligation to this generation to say to the world, not to the Democratic Party, that you are enough, because you are inheriting this. You know, me and Clay and Dr. Barbara and Mel, we really do want to go on the beach and let y'all have it. But we ain't that, you know, we can't do it. We know we can't do it, but we want to. But the fact is, you all are standing out here and we need to stand with you. And we need to say to you affirmatively, this is your fight. This is how you look, and you deserve at this moment in time, out of all of our leaders and all of our history, you deserve to see a Black woman in this at this moment. And that's passionate for me, and that's passionate for us, and it's no hyperbole. So the fight for us is about you all and not about the party.
Okay, I hear that. Now, Dr. William Skinner, I'm going to come to you. Because as much as I would like to acknowledge the fact that it's not a party fight, I think that we have to be clear about the fact that there is no real pathway in the Republican Party. Like, we still convincing them that, like, we should be able to vote, right? So I think I'm not trying to make this too partisan, but I want to make it real. That is a moral argument, but it's real, right? And so somebody said, So I just, you know, with that, I want us to really lean into the fact that this is a long time coming. This argument that, again, that Mel made, that it should not be an exception, it should be the norm. How are we in 2020 and we're still this far off?
Because Barbara Jordan said it best in 1974 on that impeachment panel over Richard Nixon. She said, when it was We the People was written in 1776, I was not in it, but I am writing myself in it. See, all of the laws that were passed, from emancipation, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, 64 Civil Rights Act, 65 Voting Rights Act, 68 Housing Act, those brought us freedom, but not equality. Because if I was equal, I wouldn't have to have the talk with my children and my grandchildren. If I was equal, I wouldn't have to get nervous when a policeman just rolls up on the side of me. So since we got to realize that a Black woman in the White House is our part of We the People. That is really, the country is incomplete. It is not whole. It's not healed until that gap is closed. The Democratic Party has been systematically, let's be real, historians, part of the problem. And they haven't ever gotten it right, seeing us as able not just to follow foot soldiers, get the work done, get the votes out, but to actually lead them. That's where we are. And that's why this is important.
Woo! There's some truth telling happening. And with that, I got two singers who I'm getting ready to turn this over to. Joteka, as it was said earlier, you really were like, okay, that's it. I've had it. Mignon said she's passing the baton. She said she passed you a fiery baton. And you said, everybody, okay, we're down to the last wire and I've got some things to say. Talk to us a little bit about some of the recent events in the last couple of weeks where you were like, all right, enough is enough. We need to get on this emergency planning and make sure they understand they're messing with the wrong ones.
Absolutely. Sister Angela, it's always good to join you and all of these sisters. I think it goes without saying, when listening to just my dear South Carolina sister, Cleola Brown, and Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, and our sister Mel and Mignon outline the history. They call the names. And literally, I think like so many of us over the last months, not weeks, the months, we have watched systematically the disrespect. We have watched systematically the racist and sexist remarks and actions toward Black women leaders that had earned every bit of the fact that their name had been lifted up to govern and lead in this country. Highly qualified Black women who had been named as potential vice presidential nominees. And I think to that point that Mignon raised, that in the spirit and tradition of Shirley Chisholm and Fannie Lou Hamer and Sojourner Truth and so many others, Barbara Jordan, you felt a sense of pride. But in that pride, you look and you see just the utter disrespect and the level of disrespect that no one else was receiving. And as I sat there and I continued to watch and watch and watch, I was like, enough. And I think we all felt enough and said, you know what? We need to unite and we need to let everyone know, no matter who you are, no matter your political party, no matter where you sit in the party, that it is unacceptable at any moment, at any time to disrespect these qualified Black women. And some folks are saying, oh, well, this is beep stakes and this is down to the wire and everybody's playing politics. No, it started a long time ago. It started with Stacey Abrams, that she was too ambitious and she was trying too hard. I mean, she's trying too hard. I mean, did anybody say that some of these other white men were trying too hard? No. And so for me, and I think it's not just me, it was all of us. And I was just sitting there on Saturday, I was just brewing, and I felt the spirit in me. And then the spirit of Kermit got in me, and I just like Kermit the Frog. And what I know is that Black women everywhere, when we unite, when we're intergenerational, and that we sit in power. As Mel said very clearly, and as our sister Cleola Brown remind us, we're not begging for anything. We've earned it. Black women, we carry elections on our back. We have always carried these elections. We carried the election in 2008. We carried the election in 2012. And we also carried the election in 2016, even though we didn't get the result that we want. Let's not forget that Black women were the demographic that carried the elections, but yet you're gonna disrespect us? No. That's not happening. So we have united as Black women, intergenerational. We have united as Black women, regardless of who we think should be the vice presidential nominee, that we are united in that what we will not stand for is the disrespect of any Black woman that is named and we are organizing. You will see us, hashtag Win with Black Women. You will see us out there, you will hear us, and we are going to be clear that we are not going to stand for it. And let me also be very clear that we are an organizing force. And anyone out there should recognize Black women for the organizing force that we are. And that same force that carry us over elections, we will use that force to clap back and let you know what you will not do to Black women. I'm getting fired up. So you I feel some kind of way when I think about this thing. It really, it burns me up. But you know, I'm taking that burning and I'm allowing that burn to set me on fire to organize. And organize in the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer, because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, but I'm ready and on fire, as Dr. Hazel Dukes reminded us, that I ain't quite so tired that I'm not able to work.
I hear that, sis. We appreciate the fire that you use to organize all of us. To that end, Latasha, one of these tools was a letter that was publicly released today. Top Black women leaders denounce racist, sexist attacks against vice presidential candidates. We know that whether it's a small town mayor who shall not be named calling Black women Aunt Jemima, or Vice President Biden's vet committee, we've seen some real challenges. And I think that this letter speaks to some of the areas of concern. In pertinent part, it says, we are the highest propensity voters in this nation. We are a coalition of Black women leaders who, in this inflection point of the Black liberation movement, where people around the world are galvanized to action, know that the time for Black women in the United States is now. So, Latasha, what can we tell women at home, right? Like, it's not just the women who signed, it has 2 pages of names on here, right? But what can we tell the women at home they can do to stand up to ensure their voices as Black women voters are heard? And what else do we have to do? Like, they haven't heard us clearly enough yet, because they've been saying this stuff for months while Black women have been contending for the VP slot.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. Wow. We shall not be moved. At the end of the day, you know, it's hatred on one piece, but sisters, in the spirit of what Joteka said, in the spirit of what the sisters before us, we have always came up against the grain, always. And at the end of the day, what we have to remember is not our affirmation doesn't come from them. They don't affirm us. They don't give us value. It is God that gives us value. And part of what we have to do is really stand in that power. And so ultimately, what this is time, sisters, rise up. This is our moment. If we want to talk about what we got to do, it ain't just about the VP. We want the VP. We want the Supreme Court. We want congressional offices. We want people as more than one sister that is a senator. We want judgeships. At the end of the day, our power has always been used by others to exploit our ambition. The idea that you're saying something about our ambition has been fine as long as it was to advance someone else. But right now, what we're doing, we've got to know the season. So I think it's the 4 things. I think the women that are listening, we got to recognize a couple of things. One, we've got to stop letting people reduce Black women to our participation. The headlines is always around how Black women participate in the election. No, this isn't about participation. This is about power, right? We ain't just voting to vote. Like, what, at the end of the day, we're voting because we want power for our communities so that we can actually advance and shift and reduce some of the harm that is happening to our people. So this is a real game. The second thing is that we have to know what time it is, and we've got to know what season that we're in. That ultimately, when we know that there is a, if you are a farmer or you got farmers in your family, you know that there's a time to plant, there's a time to sow, there is a time, there's a harvest time. Sisters, y'all got to feel it. It is harvest time. This is our harvest time, and we got to stand in that, believe it, step on it. And all of those, at the end of the day, part of the reason why this critique
And part of the reason why we're hearing some of these negative pieces is not because something we're not doing. One, they scared because they see we coming. Because we coming, and we keep coming, and we keep challenging. And when you look at Black women who are mayors around the city who have stood up against Trump, it's been Black women who have taken leadership and called him out, and Republican governors. It has been Black women who have been on the forefront of really creating and really talking about issues. And so I think we have to really recognize what time we're in. And then the last thing is the world needs us, not just our community. The world needs us. We have a depth of humanity that who else could actually suckle white babies at our breasts and nurture white families when our own families were mistreated? Who else can do that? Who else can get up at the end of the day, walk with, when we're talking about the women's suffrage movement that came out of abolitionist movement, right? That can actually fight for the right to vote, that even though we ourselves did not get that secured to 50 years later, because ultimately when we really fight, we fight for humanity, that ultimately there's something in us that actually changes. So if there's any moment in time that America needs us, right? And unfortunately, there are some that in their own embarrassment, their own lack of, their own racism, their own misogyny, are unable to really be able to publicly admit that, but they know it too, which is why they're scared, because they see our power. So the sisters that are listening to this, I'm gonna tell you, rise up. There are a couple of things that you can do. Black women should be running for every single office that's open. If there's an office, we should run for city council. We should be running for everything that's open, not even just open. If anybody ain't acting right, we need to run. We need to be running for office. When we're looking at even congressional offices right now, 6.6% of the population are African-American women. Only 3% of state and federal offices are held by Black women. We ain't got, that's a whole half a piece of the pie that is owed us that we need to get. In addition to that, we also have to organize, just like we're seeing this now. We've got sororities, we've got civic engagement groups. At this moment, we need to be writing checks. When I think about what happened to Ayanna Pressley, the way this sister got into Congress, that her average donation was $64. But guess what? There were brothers, 200 brothers that were incarcerated in a correctional facility that organized resources to her campaign. That is what's going to happen, because this ain't just about Black women, because Black men, their lives change. When we step up, as Dr. Janetta Cole says, when we step in the room, everybody's doing a little bit better. And so ultimately, we need brothers, we need sisters, all of us, y'all. It's all hands on deck. This isn't just about having a conversation to critique white folks, although, yeah, we're gonna back you up off us. And we're gonna hold you accountable, and we're gonna take you out when you're not, like when you're working against our community and you're working against us. And so we're gonna call that out. But what's really important is that we take this moment, y'all, to really tap into our God-given gifts. It says, the scripture says, your gift will make room for you. So imagine if sisters just show up in our gifts. Just imagine if we stand in our power, the world ain't got no choice but to change. So I think that ultimately that's where we are. And we should be grateful for this moment that has created this opportunity, that their people have been exposed, that we've got to take our place, move forward so that we can literally make things better for our community and all communities in this country.
Absolutely.
Come on, preacher. Okay, so Makani, I know that you are in front of your camera now. I was waiting. I can't wait to get to you. I want to come to you on this point. Your firm is Higher Ground Change Strategies. And speaking of that, Latasha just took us up. I want you to keep us there. And I'm going to go to the Bible because Dr. Skinner is here. So I want her to know that I know a little bit of word. So, and I'm going to do a slight tweak on a parable-like thinking. So if Joe Biden is Lazarus, Black women are Jesus, and we said, Lazarus, come forth. That's the one thing that I've been saying throughout the duration of this, because Latasha and them wouldn't let me put it in the op-ed. So I got to say it everywhere. They wouldn't let me put it. So thank you. See, Dr. Skinner. Yes, I got an endorsement from Dr. Skinner. So on that, this idea that we should be taking up space, that space is owed to us. We said in our op-ed, you owe us. Talk about what else is owed, because to me, the vice presidency is only one of the things to what Latasha was talking about. Talk to us about some of the other things that are right.
Sure.
Are enough.
No, absolutely. And as a preacher's kid and a preacher's grandkid, you know, I'm a love me a Lazarus metaphor because there's so much there. But I will I'll let that sermon happen another day. But I will say this though, that I think this is really an important moment, and in many ways more of a Lazarus moment than we want than we think about it. Because you think about it, who first knew? Who first knew the rock was away? Women. Actually Black women, because we know where the Bible took place, Black women. You know, where did the message come from? Who were the first people to believe? Everybody else was like, what happened? Yeah, he must have just melted. No, they were like, no, he walked. You know? So a thing is that we've always been the vessels of belief. We've always been the vessels of faith. We've always been the vessels of possibility and imagination, because we are the miracle bringers. That's who we've been in history, in spirit. That's who we are. We're creators. That said, I think it's important too, as we reflect on this, is that part of the reason why we even have a conversation about what quote unquote is owed is because not only do we have to play the game, but we have to play the game by these really crazy rules. And so the reason why we're even having a conversation about whether or not the most loyal, the most consistent members of a particular party should get any kind of love, like that shouldn't even be a question. But the reason why it's a question is because of the rules. And I was thinking a lot about another Black woman who's an ancestor, who was a mentor of mine and someone that Cleola may remember from back in the day when we were working for Jackson in '84, and that was Peggy G. And Peggy, may she rest in peace and rise in power, was one of those folks who was part of the architect of the DNC strategy. And, another sister who didn't get the kind of credit and of course left us too soon. But I think that was a really important turning point, because before that, it was hard to even talk about, delegates, you had winner take all. And so there's so much about what happened with that campaign, the Jackson campaign, and also the Black women, many Black women who helped design and develop that strategy so that we could even be having a conversation, right, about delegate strategy. And of course, being in Mississippi, I got to shout out Fannie Lou Hamer, because the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party and that whole strategy was really part of the framework that recognized these rules do not work for us. This electoral college, if there was no electoral college, if there were no states' rights, we would not be having this conversation, because we would be talking about majority vote. In a majority vote, there would be no question there should be a Black woman VP. There would be no question, because you look at it, it would be where the votes are. Mm-hmm. But now we're having a conversation about where are the electors, which is basically a white supremacy game. So I think part of what we've got to hold, especially those of us who know about politics, is if we buy into the narrative that it's just like what they say, and that this is just about our deservingness or our worthiness, when the only reason why they even are on top of the game or even nominees is because of this really, rigged game. And so I think that's the most important thing. I think in many ways, it's like we want to fight this fight. We want to make sure that we're respected. And then we also want to recognize the only reason why somebody like Biden is a nominee is because of this rigged game. This is not about majority rule. This is not about majority votes. And those of us, we play the game as best as we can. And some of us are brilliant at it, but it's like running in sand, right? Where other folks are running on a track, and we're running in sand to try to make our votes count. And that's on purpose. That said, part of what they owe us is a change in the rules, that the Democratic Party needs to live up to its name as a Democratic Party. That's right. That they need to be ready to be talking about things like, proportional representation and all these things that right now are relegated to democracy nerdom, that our people need to be talking about, because basically it's like, how can our vote count? And then the infrastructure of voting, because, all of this repression didn't start with Trump, right? And so And so the thing is, so now we're in a position where we're trying to make sure, for the sake of the party, for the sake of the election, for the sake of our people, to make sure there's somebody on the ticket who is actually interesting to our folk, right? Who's dynamic, who people feel like they can have faith in, you know, and feel like that person, if they're close to power, that's going to make us feel good. And what we know, like we know in life, like we know on our jobs, and this is the other thing too, because all sisters everywhere are in jobs where there are people who we're like, oh my God, I'm doing all this work, and this person is so mediocre, and I'm really the one doing the work. And here we are again, essentially in the same kind of conversation that Black women are in almost every place they work, where you have folks who are ambassadors, who longtime Congress people who have developed groundbreaking legislation. I mean, just the range of the baddest, I'm not even gonna say the baddest Black women, the baddest people ever elected of any race or gender, like amazing set of people. And we're debating about whether or not they should lead this country. It has a lot to do with not so much what people owe us, but just the absolute, just way in which these rules and this narrative comes together to marginalize not just these sisters, but all of us. And the last thing I'll say is that for folks who are watching this, figuring out, what can I do? So I want to add just two more things. One is that our voices in terms of media depiction and imagery matter. So every time you see something crazy, comment. Because you know the crazy people will be commenting and saying things about our sisters. So organize your church, folks. Organize the people who you're like, you're not an organizer. You maybe don't want to go out. You're a little worried about the virus. I'm not mad at you. But write from home. Make a comment. You know, write a letter. It doesn't have to be fancy. You know, you could even write a little comment in the article online and be like, that's a lie. Like whatever you have to say, it helps people understand and put things in perspective. The second thing I think is really important is that no matter who you are, your voice matters and it multiplies. So it's okay to drop an email to the campaign and let them know that we're watching and that we're concerned. And you don't have to be famous to do that. You don't have to have letters behind your name to do that. The more they hear from every single one of us, as they say, Mama and them, Junie and them, all my people, we need to be in this conversation. If you feel some kind of way, like, and I know you do, when you hear those kinds of things, just drop an email, take 2 minutes, whatever you have to say, it gets heard.
Thank you so much, Makani. I want to come to you all on this point. So we say all the time that Black people aren't monolithic, and that of course is indeed the case. But sometimes us being not monolithic is a little frustrating, and I give you today. So I posted a clip from the Breakfast Club where I'm talking about the vice president needing to be a Black woman. And I get a flood of comments on my Instagram with people saying like, no, we just need to win. Why are you focusing on it being Black? We just need to be qualified. Why if I say Black, that doesn't mean qualified, right? Like, what is it about that? And I want to go specifically to this because there are people are like, well, even if he doesn't pick a Black woman, I'm not voting for Trump. It's kind of a false choice. We're not suggesting people go to Trump. But if we do address this just for a minute, knowing that Black people are not monolithic, what are you all going to do if he does not pick a Black woman? And what do you recommend people at home do? What do we do? What is the pivot? We have to prepare, since there are people on his vet committee talking about we're too ambitious. By the way, my new Twitter handle says ambitious, no remorse right now. That's my new Twitter name.
Yeah, after we finish crying, because we gotta cry. We give us that space. We gotta pivot, sisters, to our highest agenda. We have got more reason than anybody to focus on policing, the attorney general, what happened, all of those consent decrees that have been thrown out, all of the focus on voting rights that's got to be there to strengthen it. Police chiefs have got to be pulled in all over to understand that this is America. So I'm saying that we've got to make our agenda the compelling reason for Black people to vote, to say to whoever is the candidate, the ticket, whatever, that you want us, this is what it will cost you. We've got to make the agenda the focus.
1,000% right. How many polls have we seen, Latasha, Ms. Brown, Mignon, anybody, you all can chime in, that say that Black people are issues-based voters? I don't understand why we still haven't organized around an agenda. We know Latasha and I have talked about it a lot. Black to the Future, Black Futures Lab has an agenda, Black Agenda 2020, that is dynamic. We can't all get on the same page on that. What do we need to do to shift to an agenda-focused election for us to really move bodies?
You know,
I want to jump in.
I just want to jump in real quick around that to say what I want to acknowledge what Black people are going through right now. Black people are going through hell right now. That at the end of the day, I know people in my community, even my aunt, who literally is ready to give up because she's so lonely. She's 86 years old. She's lonely. I can't go visit her because I actually just got over COVID-19 myself. It is devastating and ravaging our community. There are over 30 million people who are without jobs. I'm raising this because I think we also have to center our work when we're talking about an agenda and what the politics are right now. This is so beyond the VP. This is so beyond the other pieces. We need a radical reformation and an agenda that's not just fitting in terms of how we negotiate with the Democratic Party or the candidate, but fundamentally, when you look at the discrepancy, when you look at the economic gap between Black people and other folks in this country, when we're talking about cutting off healthcare, who do you think that impacts? Part of the reason why Black folks are so vulnerable right now with COVID-19 is because we have not gotten the same kind of care. We have not been paid the same kind of wages as others. Even when we look at Black women, 68% of Black women are hourly wage workers. We know what that means. I'm saying that because I think that we have to really focus. You know, I'd like to say when we're talking about the candidate, for me, I think that's been the biggest mistake we've made. Part of the mistake in politics is we made this be either about the political parties or the political candidates. And we're waiting for the man on the white horse to come through and be the perfect candidate that can actually save us, whether he's a white president or the Black president, right? When ultimately this really is about issues. And so how do we organize around that? One example to me would be what happened in Alabama. In Alabama in 2017, when you saw the Senate race, when it was Roy Moore and Doug Jones, we didn't know Doug Jones. At the end of the day, he was not necessarily a favorite of who we were supporting. What those of us who were doing organizing shifted the focus, that the focus really was around, and we literally say it's actually on the back of my shirt. We say it's about us. So you have to create the different center point where we're talking about us, and even in our community, you know, this whole notion that we got to all believe the same thing, of course, we don't have to do that. We're creative and innovative and expansive in our thinking. What we have to do is be in alignment with our values. And if our alignment is for the liberation of our communities and Black people, then we can figure it out. We can come at it at different angles. And so what I do think that we're seeing now, I am seeing the leadership of Black women. I am seeing the leadership of organizations, groups like Black Women's Roundtable, other organizations that have been literally having these policy forums for a number of years to really get Black women together so we can really think about what are our agenda. I remember a couple of years ago when we did Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, we've been talking about healthcare. We've been talking about wages, right? It's a matter of, that's why we're talking about now when we're saying getting people in position. I am, as much as I do voter work, I don't think that voting is going to be the end all and be all for our to save us. That's not what I believe. But however, what I do believe is that ultimately it can reduce the harm, what's happening in our community, because I know what it looks like, right? To go to a courtroom and there's a certain DA and there's another DA. I know what that means. That can mean 20 years to life to our people. I think that we have to literally position our power of participation as we participated in this and really start rallying around having these conversations specifically around policy. And there's any time that we talk about a policy agenda in the midst now where every single system is vulnerable, that has really been crumbled. When we're looking at, we should be having a conversation right now about healthcare, a nationalized healthcare system and expansion of Medicaid for all. We should be leading the conversation right now around the economic recovery. I'm not talking about just a stimulus package. Like what happens when the dust clears, right? Many of our people right now are being threatened, and poor and working class people right now are on the edge of really get kicked out of their homes, y'all. So ultimately, what we want to do is we've got to really be able to zone in right now on what the issues are currently, be able to take the energy of what is happening throughout the country and literally build out the agenda. And many people have been working on it. I think we just got to say,
and Latasha, I just wanted to piggyback on that. One of the things that's for sure, you know, we have a lot of agendas. I'm not going to say that we're going to all get on all the same page, but so many things are obvious that have been systemic. I think we got 92 days, right? And before, I don't want us to get away, Angela, before we get away, we can talk about a lot of things. We got 92 days and we got to make sure our folks are ready to what we call, are you ready to vote? Because the folks tell you one thing about, and I like the idea that I can just talk as Melanie in a different hat than worrying about the other job I have, which I'm not going to bring up today. But so my other part of my passion is being able to just speak truth to power without worrying about a title. And the reality is, when somebody, this administration tells us what they're going to, he told us when he came down that elevator, everything he has said he wanted to do, 45, he has either done it or attempted to do it. So I believe him when he says, here's what I'm going to do. I believe that you're going to do everything you can to steal this election. We have to get everybody on here is doing work. So I'm not discounting anything that's going on, but we have to set an alarm bell to our folks that now is the time. Right now, if you're watching, go ahead and find out if you're still registered to vote. If you haven't registered, register to vote. Find out, voting will start beginning of September, right? Not November, beginning of September. And because of the circumstances, we saw what happened in Georgia and Wisconsin and all these other places. Our folks have to know, we have to, one of my old friends used to say, we have to inoculate ourselves against being voter suppression. And that means in the month of August, get ready, get ready, get ready. Make sure we do everything we can. Check your registration status. Know where you're going to go vote. If you're worried about COVID-19, stop. Say, okay, am I going to vote by mail if I can? Can I vote with absentee ballot? Or am I going to show up on election day or early vote in my state? But this is the month for us to be armed to bear. Next, August the 6th is the 55th anniversary of the voting rights, signing of the Voting Rights Act. We just lost two major giants in the civil rights movement with Congressman John Lewis and Dr. C.T. Vivian. And 3 months back, Dr. Joseph Lowry, and so many other heroes and sheroes that Latasha knows that also crossed that bridge, who have gone on to glory. So at the end of the day, so much happened about Congressman Lewis. It's like, if you believe that in the memory of him and you want to do it, we got to vote. But we also have to be organized about it and know that month of August, I implore you, get ready. And ask you, are you vote ready? And make sure that you are.
Can I this is Mignon. Can I jump in a little bit? Because I want to go back to Angela's fundamental question. And I thought that was a very important thing she said when people start pushing back on her. No, we're not monolithic. But let me just tell you, what I have learned over the years is racial superiority is sometimes hard to break. And even in our own minds, we have to think about deconstructing how we see race as it is inflicted on us. Okay. Part of the people that were responding to you cannot see a Black woman. And part of that reason is because Black women are so skewed in America, and it dates back to Harriet Tubman saying, I'd rather be a slave. I'd rather shoot you in the foot before I let you be a slave. We have to constantly paint the picture of what it looks like to be a full-blown citizen in this country. We shouldn't have to, but we have to. So every time we are on a panel, every time we are doing anything public, we must reaffirm, especially for Black women in this era where race and COVID has now joined together. Latasha is absolutely right. We are beaten down. Just on an average day, we are beaten down trying to juggle all these things. So I am asking our sisters to reaffirm us every day and just give them a reason to see themselves. That's number one. Number two, we have to reimagine this election anyway. There is no blueprint for this election. You know, we can tell people to go out to vote, but how? What are we telling them? And when Mel says start early, we must start now, and we must buddy up with somebody. I remember just in the primaries where I was telling my young nieces and nephews, do not call me for a dime if you are not voting. I want to see the picture with I vote sticker. Don't ask me for nothing else in life. Do not talk to me about Trump. Don't talk to me about anybody. Show me the sticker. Lord, I got so many pictures, I didn't know what to do with them. I said, but I don't care. We have to get that granular with our people. And we have to keep saying, it is our time. Whether you decide you don't want a Black woman or do want a Black woman, there's no job in America that you apply for. And this is an interview, people. This is not, we're not giving them anything. We pay taxes, every last one of us, and every last one of you that are out there, you pay taxes. And this is an interview. The President of the United States is interviewing before you. It is your opportunity to judge him. It is your opportunity to say, this is what I need from you. It is your opportunity when you elect him to go back and hold them accountable. What job in America you gonna get and you don't get a 3-month review? Think of your president as his 3-month review. If he's not doing stuff for you, come back to him, especially if you've elected him. It goes the same for congressional, it goes the same for city council, board members. You are the boss, not them. You are the boss. And I think if you keep in mind, you're the boss, not the president. You are the boss. Every time you look at your check and you wonder why it's so small, you determine to yourself, I'm the boss. And I will say it one more time, keep affirming us, because we are tired.
Yes.
We are tired, keep affirming us.
Yes. Well, Mignon, I'm going to jump in right behind you for a couple of reasons. You continue to bring pieces right back together on every opportunity that all of us get a chance to share a venue. And I thank you publicly for that. But to Angela's question as well about, I'm going to just make it plain old country because that's where I come from. How come we not acting like we understand what everybody's trying to make us understand? But we do. We get it. A part of our issue is that sometimes we get turned left or turned right because some buzz phrase is popular, because folks are telling us what we ought to think. We have an obligation to stay focused on this issue. And the issue is that we deserve, and we're calling the question on representation in the focus of this government. And that is not something that we have to prove every single day, because the proof has already happened. But in order to be able to accomplish it, once we get it, and I believe we're going to get it, is to stay ready also. Be ready when it happens. Stay ready. Get folks who we know in our own houses that aren't ready to take this responsibility seriously and make it something that will stick. I get so excited when I hear a Jotaka talk, because she's got the fire and the passion in her belly to make some of us older ones, I am, but I'm not going to accept it, to get up and get with it and stay with it, staying focused and staying ready. Everybody understands what this pandemic has done. Everybody's talking about it because white folks are suffering too. Not at the same level as us, but they feel the pain because Po is Po. The other portion to that is calling the issue to the surface every time we have a conversation about what it is that we want, what has happened, and how we plan to get there. Because if we don't stay focused, it will be simple. The time will not come again as it has right now. Mel is right. Folks understand and appreciate what some of the previous leaders have contributed. We have to make them learn the history lesson that never got taught in school, to understand that not just Black people benefited from it, but all people did, because it was about our fundamental right and our fundamental entitlement to democracy. Getting that was not an easy task. And we should not be so willing to be nice and walk away from it because they're not ready. We're ready. We've just got to make sure that our entire cohort is ready, that Black people understand what it is that is going on, and we got to listen to, because people are in different spaces and at different times in their readiness. We have to listen to what they're saying and be able to pull ourselves together, as Angela indicated, get that one agenda, and the one agenda is to win what's ours.
I want to jump in there because this conversation and everything that has been said, it goes back to power. It is about power. And I think that it's important for us as Black women, as Black people, to know and to always reaffirm that we are power. We're power. Voter suppression has been about power. It has been about the fact that we have power. And we saw the voter suppression start. Well, we've always been attacked with voter suppression. The 1965 Voting Rights Act, which we're coming up on the 55th anniversary of it, helped ease a lot, but it didn't stop. But we saw an aggressive, more focused attack start back in 2010. We all were there. We saw photo ID. They started to tinker with legal cases. They ran them up the courts. We found ourselves with Shelby versus Holder. And now we are in a predicament where we are seeing the massive result of a multi-billion-dollar campaign to suppress our vote, which is to suppress our power. And it is important for us to recognize that our power is important, because if it wasn't as important, if our voting was not as important as it is, people would not spend millions upon millions, up to billions of dollars to try to suppress it. And it's also equally as important for us to use that power and to demand something. As Mignon said, they work for us. So we have to ensure that when we vote, that our vote is not just something that we are going to just do and then leave. We got to hold those accountable that we vote for, that we have to demand something. And I have said this before, that it is going to be no longer a day when we will have the whole meal, we will set the whole table, and then you just want to offer me a piece of the pie. No, I want it all, because I deserve it all, because I helped set the table, I helped build it, and I deserve it. And I think also, third, what I want to say is that it's going to be important for us to connect that these issues and these votings, particularly at the local level. Yes, we care about the presidency. Yes, we care about Congress, but we've got to also connect the issues, because I want to remind us that in Georgia, where Ahmaud Arbery, we all ran with Ahmaud, we all were fighting, but in Georgia, in that county, that district attorney had not been, that seat of district attorney has not been contested in more than 20 years. That DA Johnson in that state, in that county, who did not convict with all of the evidence, she got into that position uncontested with 26,000 votes, got her in the office in a county that is 40% Black. Now we got to ask ourselves, how is that the case? Because we have power, we have to use our power, we have to leverage our power, we have to put people into office that will set and focus on our agenda. And that is what we have to focus on, is our power. And not just power to have power, but power that moves everything to a place where the people are at the center. Because we've been focused on these candidates and these personalities, and we have to, as my sister Latasha said, we have to center the people at what we're fighting for. And that's where we got to get back to our agenda, our people, our issues, and how they affect our day-to-day lives. How do they affect the woman that is working hard every single day, who's worried whether or not her plant is going to get her enough hours? Or my cousin who was scared with COVID-19, who was afraid. And I get angry when I think about Hilton and Marriott and those hotels that threatened her that she would not get paid if she took off from work, when she said that her husband and her sister had COVID. So we have to fight for them and connect our voting to issues that hold anybody accountable in a position of leadership to vote and to move policy that affect our day-to-day lives. That's what we have to do.
Thank you, Joteka. I want to go to Makani and then to Latasha to close us out. We clearly need a few hours for this, Mel and Holly, for next time, just because there's so much to unpack. And sometimes when Black women get in spaces like this, we realize that we haven't been heard, right? And our folks haven't been seen. And so you take that moment, Joteka, to your point, to unpack power. Before we can do anything around power, we have to first understand it, Makani. So I want you to talk to us about some of the things we can do going forward, particularly around empowering ourselves so that we are heard, we are seen, and our votes demonstrate that we know we are the boss.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be brief because I know I want to hear from my sister. So I think one thing to remember is voting is the beginning. It's not the end. We talk so much about voting. And one of the things, you know, our sister Mignon has been a leader of like being in there for those long late night meetings when the rules are being discussed. And these rules are being discussed everywhere in our local communities, all kinds of ways in which we can participate. And I always say to people when I'm talking to churches, the first thing to do is go down and look. Let them just see you. And now it's easier because so much is virtual. So you can be in that chat and they can know that you're a witness. Bear witness, because it starts with knowing what they're doing. That's how you act like they're your boss. Because when you boss somebody, you supervise them. You give them some oversight.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, I'm just saying, right? And I think the other thing too is how we, even though we talk a lot about democracy, we don't always know the rules. We spend a lot of time talking about voting. We spend a lot of time, but we're not paying attention to like, well, why? How do the candidates get on the ballot? How does it work? There's a whole architecture of how that works. And there's a lot of smart people that we need to spend more time with that. And this is the last thing I'll say, and that is, these folks will get us in a game where they're going to tell us that the reason why we don't have things is because we're not organized, because we're not together. And you know, that's not a standard. There's all kind of white areas. People don't even talk to each other. They get what they need because the rules work for them. And so what I hope the gift of 2020 will be to ourselves as Black folks, and that's why I love so much Movement for Black Lives, so excited up this weekend, you know, that's gathering thousands of young Black folks and even people my age to have a conversation about policy, is that we need to recognize that it's not because we're undeserving. It's not because we're disorganized. That's not why we're not free. We're not free because we're oppressed. Now, we can get free getting organized, but that's not why we're not free. So let us love ourselves, appreciate ourselves, pay attention, because this is not just the 2020 fight. This we know, look at my hair. We about to be here for the long haul.
Thank you, Makani. I want to go really quickly to Latasha, who had some resources to share, and then we are going to go to the chair of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, Melanie Campbell, to close us out for real, for real. You know, Black people get 3 closings. We are a church people, so we get 3 closings. So I think that's my third.
Well, I need to call a question. I'm going to interrupt because, Angela, we have not been able to hear from you. You've moderated us. We need to hear something from you before we go.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Latasha, you have the floor. I'm the moderator, as Mignon said.
You have been voluntold. I just want you to know. Just a couple of things I want to do is I want to share around resources. At the end of the day, I'm we talk about action. And so I think Joteka talked about that the women were doing, that there is, if you follow what the women are doing online and the social media and really be able to amplify that. I also want to amplify and share around resources that Black Voters Matter. Part of what we do is we support Black grassroots groups in 11 states. If you're in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, Minneapolis, Houston, Dallas, if you're in those places, and there's some others, and you are a Black-led grassroots group that are working to build power, we may have resources to help support you and tools to help support you. And so all you have to do is go to our website, www.blackvotersmatterfund.org, and you can click on the contact us, and so that we can support you. We got to build power, and so it's time for us to do some work. So I just want to put that out there. You can also text us, We Matter, to 797979. Text We Matter 797979. But our whole purpose is to really be able to support and build the capacity and invest in Black-led grassroots groups. So please, y'all holler at us.
I love that. Chair Melanie Campbell.
Well, first, thank you. But can we just do this? And I have this thing that I like to do. We're going to give you this star for being the awesome, awesome, awesome moderator tonight, and the star to all of my sisters. And my girlfriend Makani let me steal this corner phrase. Thank you all, sisters that are here and those who are watching, because that's what we are as Black women. And just let that light shine at the ballot box. I gotta stop and thank Holly Holiday, who's the president of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, who was really supposed to close us out, but but she asked me to do it, so I'm going to be obedient. And just say, please follow us also, Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. And just again, at the end of the day, we are the secret sauce. Black women, we are the secret sauce. Nobody can win the White House or any house without, if they are progressive and need our vote, we are unapologetic about that. And so if you need that secret sauce to win, also say, follow Black women if you want to win, not to be coy, but that's just the truth. Can I get an amen, sisters?
Amen. Amen. Amen.
So we're sitting here saying that we're talking about a winning ticket. And we came here to have a conversation about, because we affirmatively believe, not because it's just because of our emotions, but you're talking about Black women who have helped get a whole lot of folks elected for a whole lot of decades. And so it's our time. We know that Vice President Biden has the right to choose any candidate or any person he wants to be, and we respect that. I'm a Biden supporter. I will be a Biden supporter, right? But I also have been in this game a long time, working hard to make sure our people owned our power. And in this moment of COVID-19, in this moment of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and so many names of our folks who have died at the hands of police and vigilantes and everything else, and all those names and ancestors, we owe it to them to fight to make sure that we speak and own the fact that we know it's our time. And however way it's chosen, it's still our time. We're not going to sit on the sidelines. We're going to take this country and save this democracy one more time. But we also know we need the effort of having some extra push to go out there and show up at a polling place when Black folks are dying on the vine out here based on what's happening because of pre-existing conditions. So we're taking our lives in our hands when we have to show up at the ballot box. So we do need some extra push. And by giving us that opportunity to say, I see you, I see you, I see you, that I believe affirmatively that he'll pick a Black woman. I may be wrong, but I'm gonna stay with it. That's my truth, and I'm gonna stick to it. Thank you all, thanks again. Love everybody, and just get ready, because the train has already left the station. And Black folks, we're gonna do what we need to do. Thank you and good night. Oh, one more thing. Thank you again to Roland Martin Unfiltered, to Angela Rye, for you all being our media partners. To make sure that we weren't just talking to us around this block. And thank you again, ladies who are on this call, and all those ladies, Joteka, that have been pushing out here to make sure that we fought and spoke up for the Black women who are exceptional, that are up for, at least what they say, to be VP, that we see you too, and we got your back, and no matter what happens, we're not gonna let them tear you down, because you've earned your stripes as well. So again, I say thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thank you, Mel. So thank you all to our panelists, to Makani, to Holly Holiday, the president of Sister Lead, Sisters Vote, to Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, Melanie Campbell, Joteka Eddie, Latasha Brown, Mignon Moore, and Cleola Brown. We so thank you. And we also want to encourage you all to continue the conversation using hashtag win, not WHEN, but win, WIN, with Black women. And I will leave you with this line from our letter. While some of the relentless attacks on Black women and our leadership abilities have been more suggestive than others, make no mistake, we are qualified and ambitious without remorse. Now go with that ambition and get us a Black women VP. Good night.
Amen. Thank you and good night.
Amen.
I love you all.
Thank you, family.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Holly. Oh.
So I'm Holly's assistant, and my name's also Holly, so I can call Holly if you want to talk to Holly today.
Okay, I was trying to speak to her before she left, so I guess she signed off.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Thank